Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome. My name is Jennifer. I'm a teacher with English in the City Prazo. And tonight we are live. We're live on YouTube and on our Facebook page. And tonight we are doing focus activity 810 entitled Bansky. So we're talking about art tonight, but not just any type of art. We're talking about street art. And hi, Katia, how are you? Good evening. Thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight, we are talking about street art, Katia, and I hope you've had a good day so far. And it's very nice now that we're well into spring and the days are getting longer. So that makes me very happy because I don't enjoy short days at all. I hope you're fine, Katia. And as you join our focus group for this evening, please type in your name and say hello. Let me know that you're there. For those of you just tuning in, my name is Jennifer. And tonight we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. And tonight we're talking about street art. And street art, if you are familiar with the topic, is not any old kind of art. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you so much. So happy to have you here. So as you join our focus group this evening, please type in your name and say hello. I would love to hear from you. Katia, I know you're happy for the longer days as well. Hey, Emanuele, how are you? Thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you just tuning in, my name is Jennifer, and from Long Island, you're Andrew from Long Island. Really, you are. I'm Jennifer from Long Island, New York. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me this evening. Tonight, we're talking about street art. As you join the group for tonight's focus, please type in your name and say hello. I would love to hear from you and any comments that you have to join in tonight's conversation. Does anyone know what street art is? Has anyone ever seen street art? It's really not a genre of art that has been widely recognized or even widely respected until somewhat recently. Before the 1980s, people used to leave their tags or their names written on subway cars or on abandoned buildings. But then it took a little bit of a turn, and you could see that real artists were expressing themselves on public property, unfortunately sometimes. But usually, a lot of these artists had something to say. Has anyone seen any kinds of street art in your city or your town? I have to admit that in my great metropolis of Montale, there aren't too many examples of street art. But I did see several when I was living in New York. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're going to kick off our conversation talking about street art. What is it? Why do people do it? And we're also going to talk about Bansky. Who is Bansky? Has anyone here in our group tonight heard of Bansky? In all honesty, I hadn't heard of him until I'd done this focus several years ago. I'd heard the name, but really didn't pay much attention to what his work involved. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about him. Katia says, I saw a show in Pecci Museum 2 years ago about Bansky. Really? They had a show at Pecci Museum about Bansky? I didn't know that. If I had known, I might have gone too. In fact, you might have seen on the news recently, Bansky dedicated a work of art to a hospital in the UK. A show of recognition and appreciation for the nurses and the doctors and everybody working in healthcare, because they've really done a lot. They've done a lot during this last period, and they continue to do so. In this focus activity, We're talking about street art and positive and negative reactions to an artist. We said before that usually street arts work on public property, and that's not always appreciated depending on where they decide to leave their mark, to leave an image, or leave a tag. Thank you very much, Andrea. Andrea gives his comment about Banksy. Who is Banksy? He's very famous. He's an English street and building painter. And in fact, a few years ago, one of his pieces went on auction. I don't know if anyone had seen that on the news. And it was immediately shredded. Absolutely fantastic and genius. Because so many people want to sell his work and make a profit. So that also brings us into another argument of whether or not art should be for sale. Because especially if you're painting on public property, or if you're painting on an abandoned building or an overpass to the motorway, this is something that you want everyone to see. You're not painting it so that someone can hang it up in their living room or in their bedroom. This is something that you want everyone to be able to have the opportunity to see. Why do they do it then? What is it that they have to say? And does Banksy really have anything to say? Have you ever heard of Banksy? We're going to take a look at this text, and then we'll talk about the information that we see in it. And of course, now I'm going to have to put on my glasses because I can't see. Oh my goodness. Have you ever heard of Banksy? Banksy began as a freehand graffiti artist in 1994. By 2000, he had turned the art of stenciling after realizing after realizing how much less time it took to complete a piece. He soon became widely renowned for his artworks around Bristol and London. Banksy's stencils feature striking and humorous images, occasionally combined with slogans. The message is usually anti-war, anti-capitalist, or anti-establishment. The identity of the figure Banksy has always been a mystery, but there have been numerous rumors and theories. His art draws much criticism and controversy, but this shadow figure street artist has become famous worldwide. And indeed he has. From the text that we've just read, what is usually Banksy's message? Because many of his images are somewhat ironic, especially the earlier pieces. And then he has certain pieces that when they see them, everybody knows that it's a Banksy piece. And maybe the ones that are more recent, not too many people know about. Could you say street art is also a paint on a bus? Excellent question, Emanuele. It depends. It depends. If you're talking about someone who is painting a bus simply to vandalize it, and that doesn't mean that it needs to be beautiful, but it should have some kind of meaning behind it. Because public transportation, the means of public transportation in New York City had been painted all over the place. The buses, the subways, everything had a tag name, everything had an image on it, until they changed mayors in the late 80s, early 90s, and he cleaned up the town. Street art, yes. If you could also put an image or a message on a bus. Thank you very much. Also on trains, very good, Emanuele. In fact, that's what I mentioned before in New York, that a lot of street artists took advantage of the space they had on the subways, on the undergrounds. And there were certain trains, depending on the neighborhood that they went into, that were more decorated than others. So let's ask a few questions about our text about Banksy. Wait a minute. Have you ever heard of Banksy? So what is usually his message when he paints on abandoned buildings or when he paints on public property or walls somewhere? What is usually his message? Does he usually have a happy message? Like, think positive thoughts and the universe will give everything back to you tenfold. Sometimes his images can be offensive to some. Some people may be offended. And a lot of times his images are simply thought-provoking and makes you think about certain situations in certain places. Because he doesn't always choose global arguments. Sometimes he can choose arguments that are local and more personal to him. So what do we see in this text? What is usually his message when he produces a piece? There are a lot of interpretations. Yes, it definitely depends on the viewer. You can come up with different interpretations depending on the piece. But usually, Emanuele, when an artist produces a piece, there's a thought in mind. And the great thing about art is that it is open to interpretation. Anyone is free to think what they want. But the artist usually has a message or a thought in mind. And from the text, we see that Banksy is very anti. But anti what? Anti what? He's anti-war, anti-capitalist, or anti-establishment. What does it mean to be anti-capitalist? It seems that a lot of people are anti-capitalist. In order to understand what it means to be anti-capitalist, we also need to know what capitalism is. And I'm sure Andrea knows the answer to that question. What is capitalism? And there are certain world powers that are extremely, extremely good at it. True, you're not inside the artist's mind. You're not. But a lot of times, if you study the life of an artist or you look at previous works, if you just see one work, one piece by one artist, you could come up with many different ideas. But if you look at a body of work by an artist, then you can usually see a thread or something common that runs through several pieces for a period of time. Even if we think traditionally of certain artists, they had certain periods where they worked with certain colors or certain subjects. Andrea says the image of Queen Elizabeth with a blood spot on her face was very shocking. Yes, it was. I remember that, especially the Queen. Oh my goodness. And Katia says maybe he is against our society. That's a very strong statement, Katia. Do you think that our society, globally speaking, is a capitalist society? I know, this is a very deep conversation. Anti-establishment also suggests that he is maybe not completely against society, but against certain systems that are in place. Yes, Katia, I happen to think we do have a very capitalist society, and it spans globally, unfortunately, which is not a very positive thing for the smaller businesses. So he's anti-war, which many of us are, if not all of us, well, we should be. Anti-capitalist, which doesn't suggest, it means that it's definitely an argument about the economy and the way it's run. And anti-establishment talks about the people in power. And the interesting thing about Banksy is that nobody really knows his true identity. He's against the routine conservatism, as we can see the graffiti of priests. Is that a piece that he had done, Andrea? Because I don't remember that one. Here's a piece of Banksy. Wait a minute. Here's one piece that Banksy had done. Can you see that? All right. Now we're going to describe a little bit this piece here, and basically just tell me what you see and what you think. What is this an image of? This is an image that was painted on a wall. And what do you see? Quite simply, I see a woman. And what kind of woman is she? She could also be a representative of a certain class. And this is where, Emanuele, we get into interpretation. Because maybe something that Andrea sees or Katia sees or interprets from this piece could be something different from what you or from what I see or understand. A housekeeper, very good. And housekeepers represent which class of people? Which housekeepers represent which class of people? Is it a line of work that people aspire to? Do young girls say, you know, when I grow up, or young boys to say, oh my goodness, when I grow up, I want to clean somebody's house. That's what I want to do. And unfortunately, there are certain types of people that get stuck in these jobs. But they're not jobs that are demeaning. They're actually jobs that are important. Okay, I'm sorry. Andrea said he made a lot of them also to highlight the religion struggles in Ireland. Yes, he did. The religious images he had. Now I remember. Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. And Katia says, I see a woman that is cleaning and trying to hide the dust. And that's a very important concept. Manuele adds that housekeepers or domestic workers are not the richest of people because it's not considered a line of work that's highly respectable. And Andrea adds something very interesting. She's hiding the rubbish of noblesse. So she's hiding because obviously this filth or this dirt is not hers. Because if she's cleaning someone else's house, then she's hiding someone else's dirt. So that could also lead us to understand maybe the position that certain types of people are in, of cleaning up behind other people because of social status, and then being obligated or forced to hide the mess of other people. And ironically, we see a lot of that going on in politics today. We don't always have a choice. Let's take a look at this slide. Banksy is not an artist in an authentic way. As an artist, Banksy stops existing when there is no news about him. Right now, he is a story once again because a mural by him, street art and graffiti are no longer allowed to describe his pricey works. So he's no longer a graffiti artist and he's no longer a street artist. Has been removed from a wall and put up for auction. Next week, the story will be forgotten, and so will Banksy until the next time he becomes a headline. This is the idea or the concept that a lot of people have of him as an artist, that he only exists as long as there's a story about him. But is that the case? Is that the case then for all artists? Is he someone that simply has importance when he's in the headlines? Or do his pieces stand the test of time? because I know that there are many pieces of Banksy's, earlier pieces, that people still continue to talk about. And why would they talk about it if he were only important in the moment? Do you agree with this criticism? Since some of us here have a certain amount of knowledge about Banksy, is he only important when he's in the news? Or do people actually consider or reflect on pieces that he's done? And also, it's interesting to note that he's no longer considered a street artist. He's actually recognized. He's recognized as an artist, regardless of the environment in which he chooses to work. And the unfortunate thing is that people feel the right to take a piece of his work. So if he paints something on a wall, a lot of people, many people feel, well, he put it on public property. I want to go and chip it away and then sell it. Do people really have the right to do that? Do you think he has the right to work on public property? So this is some negative criticism about Banksy. What does it mean to be in the headline? What are the headlines? In fact, I mentioned that he was in the headlines recently. If I am in the headlines, what kinds of stories make it to the headline of a newspaper? Here we have another piece, another famous Banksy piece that was completed on a wall, another piece of public property. So if you can see the image, let me see if I can make the image a little bit bigger for you. Okay, in this image, what do you see? In the last image, we saw a domestic worker, a housekeeper, cleaning up behind her employers and hiding their mess. Which some people, in fact, when I've done this focus before, some people felt that it showed the dishonesty of domestic workers, that they didn't really clean, that they would hide the mess instead of cleaning properly. So they felt that it was a criticism of domestic workers. Instead, as Andrea said, that she was hiding the dirt of her employer. To be at the limit. A headline means to be at the limit. Is that what you're saying, Katya? To be only a name, a magazine headline. Okay, thank you, Andrea. Andrea pointed out another place where we can see a headline. We can also see a headline in a magazine. We usually see headlines on the newspaper or in the news. You know, when you turn on the news at 8 o'clock, what time does the news come on here? The news in the States comes on at 7:30. But when you turn on the news and they have that music, dun, 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 and you see the globe spinning, and then they usually flash little blurbs of the evening's news. And the words that come on the screen are the headlines that give you just an idea of what they're going to be talking about to get you shocked and appalled, so that you want to tune in and watch the news. And the same thing is true for newspapers. If you're walking by the newsstand, you might be caught not necessarily by the image, but by the headline that you read. And so the negative criticism says that Banksy is only important when he's in the headlines, which diminishes his importance. It says that he doesn't have consistency. He's only important if people talk about him, that he's not really an artist. That's like saying, I don't know, Van Gogh is only good if you look at it. But if you look somewhere else, it's no longer good. Anyway, that's what a headline is, Katya. Let's talk about the image that we have now on the screen. Don't be sorry. Why are you sorry? That's why we're here. We're here to share ideas and talk a little bit about something interesting before we go on for the rest of the evening. In this image here, I actually like this one. What do you see? And who is this person? He's no longer, we're no longer talking about domestic workers, but who are we talking about? And what is he doing? Thank you, Andrea. That's very transgressive against Her Majesty Army, but many times he paints soldiers throwing flowers instead of bombs. Because this man in that giant hat, that giant furry hat, who is he? And it shows him doing something not very nice. I know, it's terrible. So it's saying something about a certain class of people. And notice that he's also doing something in secret. If you notice, he's looking over his shoulder to see if anyone is looking at him. So obviously he knows he's a queen's soldier. And that's not a very appropriate thing to do. It's forbidden but this man, I know. How many of us want to do forbidden things, Emanuele? Isn't that so true? If someone says don't do it, I am first online. So I say, what? I'm not supposed to do it? Okay, sign me up. This is a queen soldier. And he's urinating in a public place outside. And yes, that is against the law. Even though people do it, it's not a nice thing to do. And he's looking over his shoulder because, as we said, that he knows he's doing something inappropriate. So this also says something about a certain group or a certain class of people. And especially if this is the queen's soldier, should he be doing this? It is a challenge, isn't it? I think that's why a lot of people like to do forbidden things. They want to see if they're going to get caught. And then when they don't, it's a real rush, isn't it? When you do something forbidden. I don't do anything forbidden, just so you know. I'm a very good girl. I always follow the law, except for parking laws. I don't agree with parking laws. I believe you should be able to park wherever you want. So I have a difficult time following the parking laws. Thank you, Andrea. For those of you who didn't know, thank you for your candidness. Thank you, Andrea. For those of you who didn't know, he is pissing on the wall. Yes, he is. Okay, here's another one. And this one I've always had a difficult time with because I honestly don't understand it. So if someone could give me some insight into this one, show me what you see. The first image we saw was of a domestic worker hiding the mess of her employees. The second image we saw was of a queen's soldier who was committing an illegal act. And then this image, what do you see? Aside from the man walking by, that's not important. Well, I see a child, but this child seems to be in a very serious predicament. What is happening to the girl? And in your opinion, obviously, usually when we see images of children, we know that that represents children everywhere. We're talking about childhood, we're talking about young people, or we could also be talking about our future. When you depict children, that's usually something that you're talking about the hope of the future of the later generations. So in this image here, what do we see? What is happening to the girl? And does she look happy about it? I have to, this is one of the pieces that I'm not very familiar with. She's in the hand of a monster. Very good, Katya. Thank you. But what kind of monster? Is this like a Dracula or a Bigfoot kind of monster, or the monster from the Green Lagoon kind of monster? What kind of monster is it? And that's the interesting part, because it's not just any kind of monster. Is it a big grizzly bear? Or is it possible that this monster was constructed? You know, I wish I'd printed, I used to print, I had these printed out a while ago, but I really don't know where they are. What do you think, Andrea or Emanuele? Katya says she's in the hand of a monster, but maybe a robot, something controlled. Fantastic, Katya. So we see that she's in the hand of a robot, something mechanical, and usually, not usually, mechanics are man-made. Let me see if I can blow this image up a little bit so I can see. With my glasses, I hardly see anything. Poor me. Oh, no. Okay. Let me pull the image, the focus activity back up. Here we are. Manuela says a robot. Okay, so if she's in the hand of a robot and she's being taken somewhere, who do you think controls the robot? In fact, if you look really close to the screen, you can see inside that there is a monitor. In your opinion, what does the robot represent? What does the robot represent? Manuele asks, is it a robot? Katya says, she's in the hand of a monster. So we have a monster robot. But if you have a mechanical monster robot, who controls the robot? What do you think? I know I have my opinion, but I want to hear yours. What do you think? Who controls the robot? And Kathy has also said before that a lot of times Banksy's arguments are refer to global situations, societal situations. So if we're talking about a young child who looks, if you look at her position, she's not saying, oh, take me, please. This looks absolutely exciting and fabulous. She looks hesitant. And I think she looks almost frightened. Let's take a look at a positive reaction. This is a positive reaction to Banksy. A typical Banksy work is clever but blunt, political but ironic. In the future, robots will have their own minds. Oh, Manuela, that is fantastic. The robot represents who control us. Katya, you're amazing. And Andrea says, I can't see well. Andrea, I can't see well either. Do you have your glasses on? I can't see well either. But let's describe the image for Andrea. There was a young girl being taken into a window. In the background, you see a computer monitor, Emanuele. In fact, let's go, Andrea. Let's go back for a minute. I'll show you. For fighting against young generations, it could be allusion to the Big Brother. There's a fantastic book. Here's the image. Andrea, the robot hand picks up the girl, and is he putting her outside or bringing her in? I think he's bringing her inside. So Manuele says, for fighting against young generations and the control of the British espionage system. Whoa! Andrea, I thought you said you couldn't see very well. I like the idea of Big Brother, and that Big Brother, or possibly this giant mechanical robot monster, as we've named him, is taking control of the future generations. You guys, you are really on fire tonight with your art criticism. Thank you so much. And now we're going to talk about a positive reaction to Banksy. A typical Banksy work is clever but blunt, political but ironic, realistic but somehow still whimsical. There's a fantastic word. Whoever would like to tell me the meaning of whimsical, please go right ahead. That's a wonderful, wonderful word to know. Banksy's entire anonymous career might be the greatest act of marketing the art world has ever seen. Banksy's projects have come to be cherished as emblems of creativity and beauty. His work always leaves plenty of room for debate. Thank you. This is exactly what Emanuele was saying, that there is always room for interpretation. And we're all entitled to our own ideas and our own opinions. Banksy's murals are designed to disrupt people from their daily routines and to make them stop and notice something, to see things differently. Excellent. And this is actually what he does, and he's very good at doing it. Because if you look at a piece in a museum or in a gallery, you understand that you're seeing art because they say, oh, come on in, buy your ticket, look at some art. But if you're walking down the street, and we saw in the previous slide with the girl being taken by the robot hand, that there was a man walking past the building. So his murals are put in places that cause people to stop and think. And because they're in such common places, it causes you possibly to see that common place differently. That's a very, very creative thing to do. So notice the language that's used in this positive reaction. And let's compare it to the language in the negative reaction where they accused Banksy of being a flash in the pan. What's a flash in the pan? A flash in the pan is something that gets really hot, really fast, and then when the fire burns out, it is gone. I don't necessarily agree with that idea. On the other hand, this positive reaction says what? Says that Banksy is clever and blunt, political and ironic. And on top of that, he's a fantastic marketing person. Because the fact that no one knows exactly who he is makes it even more interesting and intriguing. Who is not attracted to a mysterious man? Absolutely. Are you a mysterious man, Andrea? I think you are. So the fact that Banksy's murals are designed to disrupt people, not disrupt them and make them unhappy, but disrupt them and kind of shake them and make them think of something, to have a thought that is completely their own and maybe doesn't belong to someone else. And that's why the art of interpretation, Emanuele, is so important, because he wants you to have your own idea. He wants you to look at his pieces and have your own thought and opinion, and possibly draw your own conclusion about a political or social situation. This is one of the pieces that Andrea had mentioned earlier. Who do we see here? This is a very, very famous piece. This is one that a lot of us see everywhere. That and the girl with the balloon. Who is this? Massimo attending this school. Who is Massimo attending this school? He's mysterious. Are we still talking about mysterious men? Emanuele, are you mysterious? Are you a mysterious man? I know, because when you don't know the true identity of someone, you always imagine him being like extremely handsome and dashing, so sophisticated, like a spy. That's why spies are so sexy. Who could ever say that James Bond isn't sexy? He wants us thinking. Thank you, Katya, for getting us back on track. Because here we are talking about mysterious men and sexy spies. And Katya says, no, Jennifer, Banksy wants us to think. Thank you, Katya. And Andrea says, what's the meaning of whimsical? That was actually my question for you, Andrea. I mean, if you could, my friend who is watching the lesson for free, is your friend that's watching the lesson for free, is he mysterious? We're going to look up the word whimsical. Does anyone know what whimsical means? Andrea wants to know. Whimsical. Whimsical. What does whimsical mean? Playfully quaint or fanciful, especially in an appealing and amusing way. So, and if something is whimsical, it's playful and amusing. Emanuele, you're surrounded by mysterious men. Are you hoping to be mysterious too? Do you want to be mysterious? I think you are mysterious. So, Andrea, what is whimsical? Whimsical is when something is playful and amusing. So if we remember the previous slide with the guard, the Queen's Guard, that was doing that illegal act on the wall. I know the first time I saw it, I thought it was funny. So that would be whimsical, because maybe sometimes Banksy's images will cause us to laugh or smile, because maybe he takes people who are powerful or respected in society, and he has them doing stupid things, which makes you laugh. And so that's kind of funny. Okay, now let's talk about this image here. This is one of his famous pieces. What is this young man doing? He looks very hostile. He looks very serious. And he's got something covering his face. Why? Is he coming out of quarantine? Is he trying not to catch COVID-19? What is going on? Andrea says, but also encouraging people to think all graffiti with children with heart-shaped balloon or Frida Kahlo. I love Frida. Frida's my girl. Or Einstein declaring the answer is love. Thank you, Katya. Thank goodness Katya's here. She's the only serious student. He's throwing flowers, Katya. I like Frida, though, Andrea. I love Frida Kahlo. The answer is love. Well, isn't love the answer? That's what they say all the time in all the songs. Love is the way. Love is the answer. Love is all you need. All you need is love. So why is he throwing flowers, Katya? I think Katya is the only one paying attention. Manuele and his mysterious Massimo. Andrea, you're paying attention too. Do you think the answer is love, Andrea? A new type of Olympic discipline. Yes, throwing flowers is, no, it isn't, Emanuele. He is hostile and he is serious. But what is he throwing at the people? A bomb? A Molotov cocktail? No, he's throwing flowers. So this is he's forcing peace and beauty on you. But he's very serious and determined about it, because we can see his posture and his stance. This is not a new type of Olympic discipline. I like this one too. I like this one. Describe the art. Now, we've been describing these pieces throughout the focus, and we've also been This one is too strange. I like this one is a good one. This one is a good one. This piece of art was stenciled onto a wall and is quite comical. So this is where we get back to being whimsical, Andrea, whimsical, because it's amusing and it makes you laugh. A man is hanging out of a window attempting to conceal himself. Yes, Emanuele. Emanuele says he wants to spread love. Just as Andrea said, that a lot, sometimes you see the images of the girl with the heart-shaped balloon, this person here, this demonstrator, or what's the word for it? I can't think of the word right now. I'm losing my English. Someone who might be demonstrating in a political or social demonstration. He's not throwing a rock or a brick or a bomb. He's throwing flowers. So the message that he has is not violence, but peace. So Emanuele says he wants to spread love, and Katia says peace towards the others. Very good. So this also means that even though a protester, that's the word I was thinking of. So it means that even though we might be against the establishment or against capitalism or against something or other that has power over society or power over us, there's also a way to protest. And protesting doesn't mean you have to be violent or you have to hurt other people. You can protest in a positive way too. So I think it's time for a positive revolution. So here we're looking now at the next image, which I absolutely adore, of this poor man hanging out of a window. Oh my goodness. This is a great one. Now, we already read the description, but we're going to look at the image now, and then we'll talk about the description in a moment. It's what he makes Einstein declaring, but I think is the only solution. We're talking about love again. Love is the only solution. Yes, it is. And not romantic love like, oh, you make me hot, but love towards other human beings. Just to love people because they're creatures too, just like you, just like me. So what about this poor guy hanging out the window? And why doesn't he have any clothes on? If we look at the image closely, Andrea, I don't know if you can see, we see the window here, and there are two people inside. We see this smartly dressed man looking the other way, and then we see this woman in the back, scantily dressed. There's another word for you, Andrea, scantily dressed. What does it mean to be scantily dressed? That this woman here is scantily dressed. Can anyone tell me the story of what's going on in this image? The figure outside is holding himself, but why is he hiding, Katia? Why is he hiding? There are two men and one woman. The woman inside is scantily dressed. The man outside is naked, covering himself. And the man that's smartly dressed looks like he's just come back from a day at the office. Does anyone know this scenario? Has this ever happened to you? There is another man in a suit leaning out of the window. Perhaps the husband of the semi-naked and scantily go hand in hand. Exactly, Katia. The man outside is her lover. And who's the man in the suit? Is perhaps the husband looking for something. And he suspects the obvious. But ironically, he's looking in the wrong direction. If he would look down, then he would see that poor naked man hanging outside his window. Interesting is the fact he's throwing colored flowers. The only color is that of lovers. You're still talking about the man. You're talking about the man throwing the flowers. Okay, now let's see. We have a few minutes left. Manuele has abandoned us. He doesn't see his wife's lover. Now describe your Banksy piece to the rest of the students. Do not show them the picture until you finish describing it. That is going to be impossible because I'm the only one that can show you anything. But I do have something for you to see. We're going to take a look. Let me see if I can find. Oh, I can't. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull it up. I'm going to show you a piece because we only have a few minutes left. Let's see if we can get through two. The cheater and the cheated. Exactly, Andrea. That's exactly who we're looking at. The cheater is the woman and the cheated is the man. And Katia says very smartly, he doesn't want to see, which is why he's looking in the other direction. Because you know that if you don't see it, then it doesn't exist. All right, let's take a look at some other Banksy images. Let me see here. What do you think of Banksy? Your opinion? Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you one more Banksy piece. We're going to describe it. And then you tell me what you think about Banksy. Okay, so we're going to stop the screen sharing for just a minute, and I'm going to pull up the other material for you to take a look at. Okay, hang on one second. Share screen. I'm going to pull up another piece for you to take because he's done so many that it's difficult. I think I have it here. Let's take a look. Oh, can you see? No, you can't. Oh, no. Okay. I think I've made, all right, here I am. Can you see the image on the screen? I shared an image. This is the latest Banksy artwork featuring a nurse, featuring nurse workers. Has anyone seen this piece? He doesn't want to see like the dust hidden by the maid. Very good. Now you see what you're doing, Andre. You're actually finding a common thread through some of his pieces. And usually when people are hiding something, it shows dishonesty of that group of people or of that class of people. I don't know if you could see this image here on the screen. This is actually the most recent one. That was in the hospital I believe last week it was in the hospital. But I wanted to show that to everybody first. Now we're going to go back to our focus. I'm going to go back to our focus. Let's pull up our focus activity. And we'll go over the final questions of today. What do you think of Banksy? Now, we've taken a look at some of his pieces, so you have an idea of things that he talks about. Do you think street art can ever be considered real art or is it just vandalism? And this is one of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the focus. So now I'm asking you your opinion. Your opinion. Is street art art, or is it vandalism? What do you think? Now remember that a lot of the pieces, no, all the pieces that he did, they're considered murals now. They are considered actual art pieces. They're not considered street art or vandalism. But there are still people that share the idea that because he paints on public property, or he produces these pieces of artwork in places where he shouldn't, it should be against the law and it should not be considered art. What do you think? Is street art actually art? Oh, thank you, you guys. You were the right ones to do this focus with me tonight. Katia says it's absolutely art. And Andrea says, I adore Banksy. And I do too. Why do you think, considering we appreciate his work and we appreciate what he's doing, and it's been absolutely fantastic talking about his various pieces with you this evening, why do you think people destroy it? That's our last question for tonight. Why do people destroy it? I can understand people maybe chipping it off the wall and saying, oh, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to sell a Banksy. But there are also people who vandalize his work, that once he does something, someone will go by and try to ruin it and make it ugly. Why do you think people do that? Why do they do that? For example, in the 1980s, when street art wasn't art, but it was graffiti, and people were leaving their names, their tags all over buildings, it was also a way to, if he didn't paint in public spaces, maybe he wouldn't be considered. That's possible. That's possible. So if you put everything on a piece of paper or a huge canvas and said, okay, now I want to have a gallery show, would people consider him? Very good point, Katya. The fact that Banksy takes advantage of public spaces forces people to take notice, forces people to look at what he's doing. If something is painted on the side of a building, you can't help but see it. Also because it's out of place. As we said before, if you walk into a museum or you go into a gallery, you expect to see art, but you don't necessarily expect to see it while you're waiting for the bus or while you're parking your car at the supermarket. Why do people vandalize his pieces? Well, we said before that people would do graffiti to basically stake out their territory. So if there were certain groups of people that said, okay, this area is ours, they would put tags in the area so people knew you were entering the part of the neighborhood that belonged to a group of people. In order to disrespect those people, you would paint over their tag. And you would paint your tag over theirs, or you would simply paint over theirs so that no one could see it. So it's also a form of disrespect. And that's one thing that's interesting to think about, that if Banksy does put up a piece that has a statement, that has a message, not just for one or two people, but for everyone, all of society, because he does have such a big name, by painting over it, you're showing disrespect. He makes people talk. Well or bad isn't the matter. The important thing is that people speak about him and his works. Excellent comment. And that's actually how we're going to wrap up our focus for this evening. Thank you so much, Katya. And that's what's most important, that he gets people thinking. He gets people talking. And if we don't talk, we don't think about things, then we can never hope for change. Andrea says, in my opinion, it is art, and it also increases the value of the buildings. Yes, it does. If you have a building with a Banksy on it, then yes, it does have effects on the value of the structure. So what's most important, I think, from our focus this evening is that we continue to think, we continue to ask questions, and we continue to debate. We should never just accept the status quo for what it is, because there's always room for improvement. So I want to thank everyone for joining me this evening. It has been a very interesting and inspiring focus activity. I love talking about art. I hope you enjoyed it too. Please remember that English in the City is live every day, also on YouTube and our Facebook page. So please tune in next time for another inspiring and thoughtful focus activity. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Kathy, Andrea, Elsa, Manuele. It has been great sharing opinions with all of you. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you back here next time. Thank you so much, and have a great night.